Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast, where we discuss what's happening in the cryptosphere and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Buckle up and huddle on while we dive in and get weird. Here are your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. It's one I'm looking forward to. Should be good. Kim is in a new space. I don't know mentally, but physically she's in a new space. Kim, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going okay. I've been scrambling to try to get something besides a blank wall to be behind me today. So here we are.
I think it looks great. And for our audio listeners only, Kim is sitting in front of a picture of the Eiffel Tower, Big Ben, and another picture with a bunch of locations on it. So she's very international today.
Very well traveled today. Maybe not every other day, but today I am.
All right, well, let's get into a couple quick market updates. At the time of recording, Bitcoin is up 2.2% over 24 hours, is exactly even over 7 days, sitting at $17,191. Ethereum, the number 2 coin, is up 3.8% over 24 hours, down 1.5% over 7 days, currently trading at 1,278. The top mover in the top 100 coins is TWT, Trust Wallet Coin Token, whatever. Token, yeah. It is up 8.5% over 24 hours, which we say this almost every time it happens, but anytime the top mover is not double digits, it's kind of surprising.
It is.
But it is also up 25% over 7 days. It is currently trading at $2.65. I remember this from Monday. I think Kim made it an honorable mention because it was almost the top mover, and it was a coin, of a wallet that we both used but didn't really know existed. So right. It is continuing its upward trajectory. Well, I think today we have some fun stuff going on.
We do. We are going to be continuing with our interview series. Don't mind the background noise. So today we do have someone very special with us. So let's get rolling. Let's kick it off. Here we go. Without further ado. Hey, here we are in our interview as promised. We are joined this evening by Mr. Mark Wilburn. He's someone that we've known for a little while and have connected with, and he has a piece in the whole financial system. So we wanted to get him on here and just chat about, anything and everything. We just had this conversation before. Really, it could be about anything. But he's very much involved in finances, very much a kingdom person. So Mark, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim. Josh, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here, and really excited about where this conversation can go. Like you mentioned, we talked about a lot of different potential paths that we could take. So let's see which one we go down.
Yeah, one of Kim and I's favorite thing to do while we record is we usually will just kind of spend a minute or two talking about things, and then we'll press record, and we'll just try and find the flow. And when we find the flow, we try and stay in the flow until the flow stops, and then we hit end recording. And sometimes it's real abrupt, but that's all right. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. Yeah, we are honored to have you. We're excited for the conversation. To start out, I was just wondering if you would just share with the listeners kind of who you are, where you've came from, and just kind of maybe a quick overview of what your piece is at this moment.
Okay, yeah. So like Kimberly said, my name is Mark Wilburn. I'm originally born and raised in Georgia, moved to Florida back in 2007, late 2007, 2008. And met my wife at a worship conference in Alabama. Ended up through a long journey that we won't get into right now. We ended up getting married a few years after that, dated off and on, got married a few years after that, still lived in Florida, then moved to Texas for about 6 or 7 years, and then just recently have moved back to Georgia. All in that time, I have been in the financial space, primarily in financial education, educating people on how to understand the stock market, how to read charts, how to navigate, and really demystify and take the scariness out of stock markets for themselves. And about 3 or 4 years ago, Kate and I really felt the Lord pushing that it was time for us to start our own business. And so we kept getting this word, it's time to leave Laban. And, you know, if you go and look at the story of Laban, that Jacob worked for him. Jacob worked for him multiple times. And eventually it was time for Jacob to leave, start his own herd, start his own family, and pursue the call that was on that lineage and that life. And so we had that word multiple times and decided to strike it out. And God's really blessed it. He's really honored it. And we're doing some really cool stuff. So we're excited for that. What's great about having your own business is you can kind of move, and, you know, especially in the teaching, like online education space, you're not bound by geography. So we're very, very fortunate in that regard. We have 4 beautiful boys, 7, 5, 3, and 1 at the time of this recording. And so, you know, if you're watching this a few years from now, you can do the math. But they're awesome. They're amazing children. Love them. They all have such a unique personality and gifting. I wish they all came with manuals. Unfortunately, they don't. But, you know, if you're a parent, you understand that one. So they're all unique, but we love it. It is loud 24/7, and it's so much fun. So much fun. So that's kind of my highlights.
In the variety of time zones you've lived in, is there one that you've liked better for your trading career and teaching? Like, because I know it changes based on, you know, where you're at when the market opens and closes. So
I like Eastern for the open. And the reason I do is because, you know, I can wake up, make breakfast for my kids, which I do every morning, help get them ready, get them off to school, come back from dropping them off, and kind of like decompress, you know, have some like decompress time. And so, you know, personally, I get up about 6 to 6:30, somewhere in that ballpark each day, and wake up, get the breakfast going, get the lunch going, get the kids off to school. Obviously, my wife's involved in that heavily as well. And then I come back and just get to like engage, decompress, get my mind right for the trading day. Whether I'm swing trading or day trading that day, I can just get myself into a good mental state. I think if I was Pacific, it'd be a little bit harder to do that. Because they're opening at 6:30. You know, the market opens at 6:30 Pacific. So that'd make it probably a little more difficult. I would just have to be a little more rigorous in my bedtime to wake up routine.
Right.
To be honest with you. But what we normally do, the style of trading that we normally do, you're not glued to a computer anyway. And so I don't have to be there for open. I don't have to be there at certain times of the day, which is really nice. And so when I'm engaging the markets that way, which is one of the ways I really like to engage the market, because it frees me up to do what I really feel like Yahweh's put on my heart to do, right? So I can, you know, if I need to go do something, I can go do it. I don't have to be in front of the computer. Day trading, I'm in front of the computer and pretty focused on that trade, that setup, and then managing it as needed. So it depends on what style I'm working on that day. As far as market close, you know, market closes at 4 Eastern. And so most of the day spent, especially now that we're coming into winter at the time of this recording. And, you know, it gets dark at 5:30 or 6. And so I'm a big hands-on dad. I like to play. I like to wrestle. I like to race. I like to get in the grass, do the swing sets, do all that kind of stuff. And so you don't get as much time with the kids outside like that. But again, what's so sweet about what we do is, you know, for lunch, I get to see my 2 kids that are at home and go outside and play with them for 30, 40 minutes, then jump back up here and do work. So, I don't know, the Pacific close at 1 That would be pretty sweet, because then you've
Yeah.
got like from 1 to whenever to do it. So I wish I could, if you learn how to compress time, you might could do the best of both worlds, but
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, at least for my mentality, I think the Eastern time of the morning, because a lot like you, I want to have a little bit of time in the morning to just gather myself, to be prepared, and I don't want to
Yeah.
wake up at 5:30 so that I can start trading at 6. That doesn't sound fun to me. That takes the enjoyment out of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd have to get up, wake up. I try to stay healthy, and so some of the research I've looked at is try to wait like an hour to an hour and a half before you have your first cup of coffee or something like that, so that
Yeah.
these different receptors can let go of the caffeine and your body can kind of naturally process that. So I've been attempting that, depending on the night, because like I said, we have a 1-year-old, right? 18-month-old now. He's 18 months, so technically not one. He just started sleeping through the night, so it's getting easier to do the whole caffeine thing. But like 6 months ago, I was up 3 times a night with this kid. You hear him on the monitor. It's not like you sleep through that. Like, even if Kate, my wife, goes and gets him, I still wake up for a few minutes. I've luckily been blessed with like the ability to fall asleep like that. I don't know, like if I lay down for 5 minutes, I can be out. So I've been really blessed with that, but you're still up and down. And so it's getting a little easier to do it. But if I was on the Pacific, waking up at like 5:30, waiting an hour, then markets open, I hadn't even had a cup of coffee, it'd be like a 4:30 wake up call. I mean, that's a lot of intention and discipline there. And you do it, especially when that's your income, you do it, but it's like I'll take the East Coast for that reason. You just talked me into it, Josh. That's the reason, right there. That's the reason.
I think it makes sense now why New York and the East Coast are more associated with finance than the West Coast. Not that there aren't people, but predominantly that way.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is, inside of the realm of the kingdom of God, which, I mean, is everything we do, what is there a piece that you feel like this is my song to sing, this is what I was put here to make earth look like heaven in this regard?
So I have a lot of it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big one. I know my gift is teaching, right? So one of my greatest gifts, one of the lines through my family is teaching. Love finance. I really enjoy that. It's a propensity that Yahweh's put in me, that God's put in me, and there is a grace and a field of favor that I can exercise in that. Really love the concept of the gospel of immortality that Paul talks about in 2 Timothy 1. One of our heartbeats and passions is to help children in sex slavery, to help get them freed. That's a big topic for my wife and I. Something that we really want to pursue in the coming. And then family. I mean, family is our number one. It's what we go after. It's what we pursue. I believe that the Lord has put a DNA strand in every single family that's exceptionally unique, that only that family can accomplish. Right. And so God, I believe, is so vast and all encompassing that, how many people are on the planet right now? Close to 9 billion, right?
Ballpark.
That every single one of them have a very unique fingerprint and ability to show a reflection and a facet of his glory. But I believe that there's a string of that through families. That, I've seen a lot of people who their parent served in the military, or was a police officer or a firefighter or something like that, and it just continues like boom, 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 like your 6th generation military. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
My mom was a teacher, my father's a teacher. Both of them were public speakers. My dad's a pastor. And so there's just this like line of things that just kind of add up and converge for me and where I'm at. So those are kind of our top, here's what we're passionate about in the kingdom, to be honest with you. So like family legacy is something that's really been boosted to the forefront. Finance, I believe, goes along with that. Because if you really want your family to achieve the legacy Yahweh has for it, you probably need finances to get there. So
we've definitely talked a little bit about the gospel of immortality and about that, but I'm curious, I'm not to take anything away from an individual grabbing hold of that, but do you think that building family legacy is also a way of stepping into that sort of that immortality, like having your name, your legacy? Like, do you think that's a facet of that, or do you see it as two separate things?
It could be. It could be. I think there's a distinction in that. I do. I really think there's a distinction between like the true immortality, where death is completely defeated and rendered powerless over lives. Whether it's in the life of the believer or it's in the life of the body as a whole. I'm gonna pause right here for just a second.
Yeah.
Can we pause the recording just for a second?
Sure.
And so I believe there is a connection between like the individual concept of immortality where someone does not die. Even Paul says, I'll tell you a mystery, not all shall sleep. Right. It hasn't gone corporate wide yet. Right. It's one of those still taboo topics, at least in the Western church. I can't speak for, Africa or China or South America even. But in the West, here in the States, this is a topic that most people look at you like you're a freak. So, but I do also think that the memory of an individual can live on in the legacy of a family, creating a type of immortality. But I would say they're different. I think it's a cool thought. I really do. In fact, we actually have a really good friend who he's Egyptian and he has a very unique name. It's Sameh Hanan, and he and Joanne are very good friends of Kate and I's, and we were talking about his name, and they named their children after like the great grandparent, so that the name is carried on and lives throughout the entire family. Yeah. And then they learn about that grandparent, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
really cool concept. I really love that. I love passing down the stories of, like my grandfather, for example. He was a chief petty officer in the Navy, and he has all these accolades and did all these amazing things. And having my kids know about him and who he is and the life that he led, because what he did set me, my mom, my sister, myself, my family up for incredible potential success if we ran with it. Right. Obviously it's our choice. We get the choice in that. But to me, yes, my children will know about Papa Weldon. But I kind of think they're separate.
Yeah. I would agree that I think there is something different, but you were talking about family legacy, and then we talked about immortality, and in my mind it just clicked like, I do believe that not all will sleep. I do believe that at some point that will even be more corporate than it is now. But under the current situation, I just think I can't help but think about, the big names that we associate, whether it's royal families or Rockefellers or just different names that have a legacy, have almost an immortality in them, because we tend to remember the patriarch who sort of made that name a name. And then it could be 3 or 4 generations later who are actually the ones doing things, but that name has created some level of long life or immortality in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a great, even modern day example of this will become Elon Musk.
Mm,
Like, I really believe that his name will be etched in history, right?
yeah.
Steve Jobs is another one whose name will most likely be etched in history forever.
Yeah.
I mean, if Elon is successful moving humankind to Mars, no one will forget this dude.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, when you achieve these great, wondrous feats, your name lives on. But I believe that there's a difference in the concept with what Paul was speaking of versus
Right.
just the memory of their great
Mhm.
accolades
Yeah.
and their great success.
Sure. You know, I think it's interesting. We talk a lot about innovation on a lot of our episodes. And just as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking of legacy, building a legacy for your family, and how essentially it is a lot like innovation, because you're leaving these building blocks from which people can just start with without having to go back to the beginning.
Yes.
And I find it really interesting because you're even talking about Elon Musk, and, you know, he's building a legacy globally with the innovation that he's doing. But if we look at this in terms of family, the things that we do in the kingdom and in our lives are essentially innovating so that our children can go even further.
100%. 100%. You know, I believe this is why every generation is supposed to build upon what the prior generation did.
Yeah.
Right. And not just from a monetary standpoint, but from every single standpoint. Like the impact and the influence. You know, you mentioned names, Josh, like Rockefeller, Carnegie.
Mm.
You can just, the list can go on and on and on of large families, especially here in the West. You know, we're talking about America at the moment,
Right.
For any of your international viewers. But some of these large names that continue to do great things. Like, if you look at libraries, right? Ben Franklin technically helped start the first public library, but Rockefeller's the one who exploded them because he put trust into them. I mean, that's a huge legacy. Like, you're helping thousands and hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of people learn through your endowment. Like, that is an incredible achievement. And then your family continues to build on that.
Right.
Right. And so I love that concept, Kim. And I think it's a concept that we don't really focus much on in Kingdom church life yet.
Mm.
And we're hoping to bring a shift and a change to that.
Yeah. I've noticed in my sphere of things, there's a narrative of I need to be my own man, do my own thing. And to me, that I see the benefit in maturing and doing that, but it also takes away from your family legacy ability if
Yeah.
everybody is searching to get to do away with what their heritage has done and become their own person. So one of the things that came to mind was what's different about the lines, the legacy that are able to successfully pass things down rather than like I think of just like Steve Jobs, incredible, done amazing things, but to my knowledge, that he doesn't have children following up in that space, in that legacy. So what is the key difference? How do you shift from individual great achievements to family legacy great achievements?
I would look at it personally from the standpoint of the momentum I can instill in my children.
Mm.
I believe that so many people have heart wounds as children, especially nowadays with broken families.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a comment to my wife. I actually wrote it down. Give me a second. I'll pull it up. But this was just kind of like, I don't know if you guys do this with your significant others or a confidant or maybe even each other, since you're in business together. But I'll like text her stuff on WhatsApp that I don't even care if she reads it. It's more like to put somewhere else just so I don't lose it. I don't know if you guys do that or not. I said, it's the breakdown of the family that's led to the breakdown of society. We complain as people or believers that they took God out of schools, they took God out of business, they took God out of government, etc. But who are the they? They are the sons and daughters of family who failed to command them in the ways of the Lord. Family is a microcosm of the larger society of the whole. So if we're seeing a breakdown in society, we first have to drill to the root cause, which I would argue would be a breakdown of the family. Right. And so when we're looking at one of my favorite scriptures in this is Abraham. Like if you look at the patriarchy of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, talking about success and promoting people in the way that they should go, like all of them were wildly wealthy and successful. Right. Abraham, when Sarah died, he went to buy a tomb for her, and they were like, "We see you. You're a prince. You will pay nothing." And he's like, "No, I will pay full price for this tomb." Right. But what's an interesting verse to me, I think that gets lost a lot, is in Genesis, where the Lord is about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Right. It says that the Lord or three angels came and visited with Abraham in his tent. Abraham made him dinner, and they stopped. And the Lord says this, "Shall I hide a matter from Abraham, seeing that he will be great and become a great nation? For he will command his children to walk in the ways of the Lord." And that has as a father, that like really stuck with me. But even when I was younger, that really hit me as far as like, how do you command? Because that's a really strong word to use. Like, how do you command that through your generational line unless you have such a relationship and encounter that is so powerful that it's tangible, that your children can eat off of it, and you teach them how to have the same thing for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we begin to do that, couple that with Proverbs where it says, "Instruct a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it." And then you begin to look at what the patriarchy did, right? Israel, Jacob, when he was on his deathbed as Israel, he called all of his sons together, and he actually started prophesying out their destinies. Like, this is who you are. This is what you're going to do. He had the foresight to see them in that. But also, I believe that goes into raising them in that, like understanding their natural gifts, their natural inclinations. My oldest son is extremely gifted in academics intelligence. Like he's great at math. He reads at a significantly higher level than he's currently at in school. He gets concepts. He asks really good questions for his mom and I. And I could easily see him going into like one of the STEM careers, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, something like that. His younger brother, the 5-year-old, not his forte, but the cat is wildly prophetic. Wildly prophetic. I mean, there was a night we were in an Airbnb before we got moved into our home, and kid wouldn't go to sleep. And I heard him talking. And I came in there. I'm like, "Buddy, what's going on?" He's like, "The lights are keeping me awake." I'm like, "The lights?" He's like, "Yeah, the little floating balls of light. They're keeping me awake and they're talking to me." Dude, he's just sitting there talking to angels. Like, and it happens all the time with him. And so I look at that and I'm like, okay, how do I parent that? That's why I said I wish kids came with manuals, right? Like, they're so different that, okay, I'm going to push Maverick in this way. I'm going to push Blaze in this way, right? Creating a business that your kids can inherit. Like the concept of a family business. I'm a big believer in creating and modeling something, giving them skill sets that they can then use. So one of the things that I do as a trader, we have a business that teaches people how to trade. we have a hedge fund that we're opening. We have a real estate portfolio. And I was talking to my wife, like, hey, as this portfolio grows, why don't we also open up a real estate management company that manages our own portfolio? And then as our kids grow, they can intern in any of these businesses, figure out which one's theirs, and then they can start working in it. And if they want to take it when they're done with their whatever school they go to, then great, let's do it. Right. So like finding that, I think, is one way to continually build that family wealth, that family lineage, and that family impact.
Mm.
I think that's so important. And just as you're talking about this, I keep thinking, something that we don't often differentiate, but there is obviously a difference, is inheritance versus legacy. Inheritance is what you get, and legacy is the place from which you start. You know what I mean? And you can see you were talking about some other big name, Rockefeller, Steve Jobs. You could find people like that who have had children who followed in the footsteps and were taught the ways and continued the legacy.
Absolutely.
You can also see other families who left a huge inheritance and the kids stayed right where they were and didn't move forward with it. You know what I mean? So it's like they didn't continue the legacy, even though they inherited a lot, right? They had a great inheritance. And I find it really interesting and important to differentiate this in this conversation, because this is kingdom. Like both of those things are kingdom principles. But what you're talking about and pouring into your kids and speaking into them like Abraham did, but like you're also doing with your children, I think is so important for that piece, the legacy. So it's not just to leave them with something, it is to like help them in the trajectory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a phenomenal way to put it, like the difference between inheritance and legacy. That's very well said, Kim. I love, I'm going to steal that if that's okay.
Have it.
I'm going to grab that from you. But, one of the things too is like, what are the family values that are consistent and in line with us?
Yeah.
And I believe that one of the things that the church has just missed is when we get on the topic of sin or sin nature or any of this kind of stuff, it's like, you don't need to do that. That makes God mad. Rather than being like, that's not your nature. That's not even who you are anymore, because you are a new creation, right? And so when my children do something or they have a behavior, let's say they tell a lie, right? They're really honest children, almost to a fault, but it's great,
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, dude, snitches get stitches, so like calm down type thing. But like they're super honest and rule followers, and so I don't want to like get that out of them. But lying is not one of our family values. And so if they get into that, then we say, look, that's not who we are. That's not what we do as a family. We don't behave this way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So it's like a different take on the parenting, as far as instead of saying, don't lie, that's wrong, that's a sin. Like, no, that's not the nature of who you are. Like you're not acting like a Wilburn.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how my sons act. So get back into alignment with who you really are, because we tell the truth. We have integrity, right? And I think having that plumb line is huge for children, personally.
Yeah,
For sure. I think it's the difference between eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, this is right and this is wrong, versus eating from the tree of life, this is who you are.
Yeah. Wow.
You know what I mean? This is what brings life. And I think that this could be like parenting 101. I think that is one of the most effective parenting methods on the planet, is to speak life, like speak into who they are meant to be, and they'll go in that way.
Right. Like call them into it.
Yes.
I heard a Zig Ziglar thing. I don't know if you guys are Ziglar fans. I love Ziglar. You don't know Zig Ziglar?
No.
Oh, you got to listen.
I know who he is. Yeah.
Okay. He's got something on Audible. Go check it. If you message me, I'll send it to you. Okay. And he was talking about a speaker who was at a prison, And he was talking about how he tried to do all of this great stuff to please his dad. I think he was a football player. If the story serves, this football player was talking about he basically busted his tail in athletics to please his father, to become what his father saw in him. And the prisoner that was over here in the conversation, he said, you know what? I did what my dad told me I would do too. He always told me I'd end up in jail. Here I am. And it's a big shift in mindset. Like what we say prophesies and paves the path for the children to walk, right? And so when we begin to call kids into who they are, like, hey, you don't tell lies, you speak the truth. Now you can do it in love, all right? Put a little honey on it, or just choose not to say something. But this is what we do, versus like, oh, you're such a liar. And then all of a sudden that becomes part of an identity that they take onto themselves, that they begin to carry with them until they get some kind of knowledge or revelation or help to take that identity off that was toxic that they didn't even know they had on them. Right.
Yeah.
And so I love that, Kim. That's like eating from the tree of life is calling people into their identity. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's important. Yeah.
You said something earlier about one of the significant aspects in creating legacy is having a revelation big enough that your kids can eat off of it, but then teaching them to get their own food. And it just like stuck with me when you said that, because Kim and I have talked about it either on the podcast or just personally about how so many times in business, in the church, or in families, you'll see like a really successful person, a really amazing revival, whatever it is, and it doesn't live past the second or third generation because everybody's eating off of that same revelation, whether it's in business or whether it's in the church, or what can be a variety of different areas. But if you don't teach them to go get their own, then it's really hard to build off of what you gave them. And it becomes a lack mindset. It's okay, well, this is what God did, or this is what my father did. And I have to maintain it, but you're sitting in a lack mindset, so you can't grow it because you don't know where the source is. And Kim and I talk about this all the time, about our passion about helping people redirect the source in things. So it's, we love the financial system. We want to see the financial system change into something that it represents Father. And really the difference is what we have, the source is not Father, the source is something else. And so when you were talking about that, like, man, you go get it for yourself, build up a pile for your family to eat off of, to live off of, but then teach them to build on that, so that, teach them to know where the source is for that. I just think that that's so significant in creating legacy, instead of just trust fund babies who are nursing this because it's all they have. It's trust fund kids who are like, man, we have this, let's go do that. Like, it's just a different mentality. But I think that's a key in creating legacy is the ability to know you can go get your own.
Well, I think what's beautiful about children and people in general, like, we crave momentum, right? We crave momentum in our lives, and very rarely is someone like, oh man, I'm just stuck in life and I love it. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard someone say that, right? It's that, like, oh, I've got this momentum going. Like, well, how's your marriage? Oh, it's great, right? Oh, we're kind of in a rut. And when they say it, like, if you're in, oh, we're kind of in a rut, it's never like, oh, we're in a rut, it's awesome. Yeah. We crave momentum because we are meant to move from what? Glory to glory and faith to faith. Right? We're meant to move into these deeper levels. And it's in every area of our life. Like, even if you study addiction, right? If you ever have looked at addiction, or if you've ever been an addict yourself, like, you drink a drink, you get the buzz, you're like, oh man, this is crazy. Woo, woo, woo. And then, you keep doing that. And all of a sudden, like, your 5 drinks to get the same feeling of one, right?
Mm.
You get that tolerance. We are built to move to that greater level of glory in everything that we do. And I believe, especially in the children element, is as parents or mentors to people, we have the ability to help give them momentum that then they get to go carry. And I believe that's what a great parent does. I believe that's what a great mentor does. It's giving people permission to go on the adventure.
Yeah.
Giving people the permission to go fail and not worry about it. Like, okay, yeah, go try something new. Did you have fun? Yeah. Was it exciting? Yeah. Was it scary? Of course. But the result's worth it, right? It was so scary to ask my wife on the first date. Payoff. What's the payoff? It's the best thing I've ever done by far. Greatest decision I've ever made. Is it scary to give up a job and start your own business? It's terrifying, right? Is it scary to learn a new skill like trading? Yes. But the payoff is incredible. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly satisfying when you're on the other side of the journey, right? Jesus even speaks to this. He says, in Hebrews, it says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. Yeah. Like, what could this outcome be? And I think our society has gotten to the point where it's the whole, what if you fail? And I believe God is shouting from the heavens, what if you succeed? What if you don't? Yeah. We're actually going through the story of David. My kids love David. They're like, can we read a David story tonight? So I'm just literally reading, 1 Samuel to them about David. And I'll change the wordings and all that kind of stuff, but so they understand it. But one of the themes, if you'll read where once he kills Goliath, the entire next 2 chapters, it says it multiple times that Saul knew that God was with David and he would not fail. Because God was with him, he would not fail. So some of our declarations that we do is, God is with me. I cannot fail. I cannot fail. Why? Because a righteous man falls 7 and gets up. And so when we teach our kids, like, this is how you create momentum, they see it modeled in your life, because momentum's not always fun, right? Like I've gained a lot of momentum in exercise lately, hitting it 3 to 4 times a week. And it's not fun to go out there and do power cleans. It sucks sometimes, right? But then you come back and like, oh, that was an incredible workout. Like, you never feel bad after working out. It's just the minute beforehand, right? Same thing in business. Like, oh, I don't want to make this sales call. And then you make the sales call and it works and the client signs up or does whatever. And they're like, yes, this is the best thing on the planet, teaching them to create that momentum in their life and getting them going to pursue that passion. Man, I think that's how we do that, Josh. You give them what you can. We even said this in the pre-recording part of that. Proverb says that houses and riches or treasures are an inheritance of the fathers, right? Fathers meaning male or female, like dad or mom or dad, but a virtuous wife is from the Lord, to finish off the proverb. But we give them what we can to give them that financial leg up, to give them that stepping stone, to give them that whatever. Then we give them the legacy piece of the identity. And when I think someone knows their identity, they're passionate about fulfilling the identity that's within them. Mm-hmm. And so they would actually use the house, the treasures, the whatever to complete their identity and their mission in the earth. So kind of going off that, man, I think you do it all. Yeah. And maybe someone's sitting there thinking, well, let me throw it back to you guys. So I'm not just sitting here chatting the whole time. What would you guys say to someone who is sitting here being like, that's awesome. I didn't have a parent that instilled that identity in me. Yeah. I didn't have a parent who left me anything. Like, I'm starting from scratch on both. What do you guys think?
Okay. I would answer, and I might take some time to reword it, but that you do have a parent who has given you those things. You do have a loving father, and it's about, I believe the heart of the Father is restoration. It's restoration of the family, it's restoration of your identity, it's restoration of this earth, it's restoration of this bloodline of the DNA, like that. I think that runs deep in who he is. And so maybe you didn't have an earthly father that gave you wealth, or wealth in money, wealth in wisdom, wealth in relationships, whatever. Maybe you didn't have a father who provided a platform of wealth or identity. Maybe your father tore down your identity in some regards. But I think just like we were talking about being able to go get your revelation, ultimately the source has to still come from God, even if you have an amazing father, even if you have an amazing father who provided you with wealth and security and identity. It's the source still has to be Yahweh. And so I think I would say it's never too late. It's never too late to redeem your family's lineage, to redeem your family's legacy. What was, you talked about being, all the 8 million people have an individual expression, but within the individual expression, there's a family lineage, a family line through that. Go back and ask Father, start asking him to help restore your family legacy. Because I think it will accelerate where you are. I think you will be able to pick up the things that your generations before you didn't pick up, and you will be able to not only improve your life, but you will then be able to create legacy going forward. I just don't think that it's too late. Like I think that would be the message I would try to instill in someone, is that whether or not it wasn't given to you, it's never too late to do it yourself.
What do you think, Kim?
I agree. I also think, innately our identity comes from the Father. I would say it's established before we ever come into the earth, right? Mm-hmm. Our parents, if they listen to the Father and listen to who he created you to be, then they will speak that into you, right? But I don't think that the lack of having those parents or that inheritance or that legacy that's been spoken over you by a human could ever outweigh the Father's voice speaking it over you. So though it is very helpful, the one that really matters is Yahweh. And that voice can't be quieted. And that voice doesn't miss you. And so if you haven't gotten it from earthly parents or from mentors or other people who've spoken it into you, I think that every person on the planet has the ability to stop and turn an ear to him and allow him to speak that over you. And I will tell you, it'll be more powerful than an earthly father. It will be more powerful than an earthly mother. It will be more powerful than the best mentor in the world. So again, I'm not negating those things because they're so helpful. And I think this is one of the key things that we have as sons, is that we can speak what he says into other people. We become that conduit, right? So it can flow to whatever it is that he's wanting to send, can flow through us into where it needs to be received. But again, it's the source. You have to know your source, right? We're beyond the time of needing a priest to go be the intercessor between man and the Father. Like, we don't need that anymore. We can go to him directly and he can speak those things over you. So I'm with you, Josh. I think all is not lost. It's just a matter of going and having that restored. Ask and you shall receive, right?
I love it. I love those answers. Josh, to kind of piggyback off that, I would say become it.
Yeah.
Become the legacy starter, right? And so you look at John D. Rockefeller, you look at John Piermont Morgan, JP Morgan, you look at some of these men, there's literally a series, Henry Ford, right? I mean, you look at some of these names that are carved in American culture, who was their fathers? Who are their mothers? Like, we don't really know those people, right? And I'm not saying they came from great families or didn't come from great families or broken homes or whatever the case is, but we don't know who those people are because it started with one.
Yeah.
Right? You can be the one. And like Kim said, all we have to do is turn our ear to what Holy Spirit's saying, what the Father's saying about us, what does Jesus call us, right? Like, get into it and then change that for your generational line. Like, it doesn't have to continue that way. And so I call that being the David. My wife and I call it being David, because if you look at David in Scripture, when Samuel came to anoint the king, Jesse didn't even consider him a son. Mm-hmm. How much rejection do you have to go through in that scenario? Right? But who made their family name great? David.
Yeah.
So much so that a few hundred years later, maybe 1,000, I think maybe my timeline's off, Jesus is often called what? Son of David. Like, to this day, son of David. He was that powerful of a person, and yet he suffered crazy rejection from his father in that moment. And so looking at that, like, why are all my brothers here? Oh, well, Samuel wanted all the sons to come and you didn't come get me. Like, imagine that role play. Like, that's crazy, right?
Right.
And so he didn't need Jesse. He heard the voice of the Lord. He had that intimate time with Holy Spirit, right? And then he was able to create what he created, like the platform that he gifted to Solomon to step into is something that we would look at and be like, wow, I wish I could hand my child X trillion of dollars to go do what they're called to do in the earth. You know? Yeah. I think those are beautiful answers. Beautiful answers.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like we could probably talk on many subjects for many more hours, but we should probably wrap up before too long. But before we do that, I'd love to just give you the opportunity, tell people where they can find you, where they can contact you at. We'll link some stuff in the show notes for the listeners. But yeah, if you just want to kind of give a little pitch, about who you are, what you do, and where people can find you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate the opportunity. If you want to find us, the easiest way is go to our website. It's www.neos, Neos, CDG, Charlie Delta Gamma. So neoscdg.com. There's a contact thing at the bottom that you can send to our support. You can actually schedule a meeting with us now straight up off our website if you want to get trained in stock trading. If you want to actually like dive into this family legacy thing, we are literally launching an entirely new portion of our business dedicated to helping people dig out this leaving a legacy, creating a legacy. I hate to use the words leaving because it implies mortality. Right. And so being a legacy creator, what does that look like? What does that mean for you? To create that legacy for you and your family to step into, to walk out. Obviously now we have a financial portion, we have the family legacy portion that we're kind of just merging into two. So you can find us on neocdg.com. You can go to our Instagram page, mark.wilburn1, the numeral 1.
Okay.
So you can find me on Instagram, mark.wilburn, the numeral 1. On Instagram, you can find my wife, Kate Wilburn. Her handle's significantly longer, but you can put that in there too. We'll put that link in bio. That'll be the easiest ways to get a hold of us. And, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear how you love the show. I would continue to tell you, just continue to press into what these guys are releasing in the earth. What they're doing is special because it's bringing in so many different facets of what God's seeing. And it's an honor to be a part of this and be invited on the show with you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
The honor and pleasure was all ours, for sure. We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you soon.
Thank you for listening. Join us every Monday and Thursday as we discuss trading on earth as it is in heaven. If you want to connect further, follow us on social media at market.mystics for Instagram and TikTok, and search for Market Mystics on YouTube and Facebook. If you still need more, follow the link on Facebook to book a coaching appointment. Until next time, see ya.